2025, 10 a.m., and we're to discuss the passage of SRS, the SRS bill, and effects on Public Works Department budget. And I will turn it over to our Roads Director, Jessica.
So it's nice to finally have a really exciting thing to talk about at this table. We were all notified last week that the House did, with great support, not quite unanimous, but pretty darn close, finally pass that SRS bill. So what that means for us is that we are going to have some money coming in. Our regular payment for the 25 year, which we usually receive in April. So April of this year for last year will come in full, which is for us in our department just a hair under $1.5 million. For the county as a whole, to the other departments and things such as schools, it's $2.8 million. So that will come in as a full payment. They will also retroactively pay us for the portion of the payment that we missed for last year. So we'll get a nice little sum of money. Just to give you an idea what the substitute payment looked like, to my department. I only get the breakdown numbers from my department. So when I talk about SRS coming, from here on, I'm going to speak to numbers to my department. I don't want people to think these are the countywide numbers, because they would be off. So every year we anticipate approximately $1,494,499. Last year we reverted back to the 1908 Act, where it was a percentage of the overall timber sales. So we did get $697,753.46, leaving us with a void of $796,745.54. So that was the deficit that we were running off of. We're renewed through 26, so we'll have a few more payments coming before we have to kind of go through this again. So when I called the meeting last week, I had planned on sitting down and spending all of my free time throwing together a spreadsheet on how I felt like if we were to reopen the budget, revisit this year's budget that we're already in, what I thought that would look like. Obviously, the next day we flooded, so that didn't happen. And so I switched gears to kind of come to the mindset, and this is a good thing too. We know the money's coming in. We're functioning for right now. I would like to have some good in-depth conversations and some brainstorming with the board. And over the next few weeks with when things slow down a little bit with our supervisors as well. I want to really reanalyze every line item of our budget, knowing that some of them we have cut out that need to come back in. Obviously, the maintenance line items are huge. We shouldn't be cutting anything out of maintenance. So we're going to look heavy at that. Staffing levels. There are things that, we were talking about decreasing the size of our fleet, particularly with the loaders. We talked about the loader leases. And then our capital for our pickup purchases that we do. Normally we're 2 a year. We haven't purchased the last couple of years just because the SRS was on the table and we just didn't feel comfortable spending that. So those are some of the line items that I want to talk about today. But my thoughts are, what I'd like to do is talk about where we're at now, the money that's coming in, what we as a county would like to see addressed first and foremost. There are some opportunities for some possible funding, additional funding to come down the road. We had held back the highway user revenue to the tune of $840,000 that some of that could be coming back in. We talked about some bridge match and things like that. So there are some things that we need to kind of triage as a county, rather than just me saying, hey, this is what's best for the county. So kind of what I'd like to do is just go through, I didn't do handouts, but this is just for my reference to kind of to give me some points. I printed out our working budgets for the 2025 fiscal year and then the 2026 fiscal year that we're currently in. Starting at the top with our staffing level, we made significant cuts.
Mhm.
We cut 9 positions. Our office cut 1. We seem to be operating okay. It's a little crazy at times. Like now we have an emergency and there's all of this additional stuff to do added to the regular stuff that needs to happen. You know, we have a bill run going. We have to, you know, the payroll stuff. And so that's getting a little bit heavy, but it's manageable. So I'm not considering at this point adjusting our staffing levels at the office. Now, as far as the other shops, that's a different story. The 2 smaller shops, we were budgeted for 4. We cut down to 2 in Marble Creek. We cut down to 2 in Murray, and then we had the generous donation to bring us to 3. But technically, as far as like what we're budgeted for years to come, you know, it reverts back to that 2 number absent the donation. So that's not a comfortable number to sit at. Even for operations, it becomes safety issues. It's not enough to be doing something and having proper amount of flaggers. So that's one thing that I would, you know, like us to all kind of weigh in on. I do feel like that 3rd position needs to be added in each of those districts, 1 and 4. As far as the other 2 districts, changing the hourly pay rate from $17.39 to $20 an hour made a big difference in the applicants that we got for the temps. I felt like it was we definitely got a pretty good pool. You know, we still need a few temps in one of the districts. And so we have a little bit of a mixed review from the supervisors from each of the district in that if we can cover operations in the wintertime with some additional temps, maybe we see how we do with a little bit of a lesser staffing level year round, because we are not at this point, even with the SRS, going to be fully budgeted for some of those projects that require those larger numbers. We've already embraced the idea that we're going to be grouping up districts to do larger projects. So let's say we add the, you know, not let's say, we will be adding some chipping, you know, money into it because we need to be doing that for maintenance. And I think that we could get some things done on a smaller scale with a few less people. So, you know, right now we're staffed for 5 at each of those districts. I wanted to look, Smelterville has more road mileage. Historically, before some of the cuts, before I came, Smelterville did have 1 more employee than the Osborne district, and that was strictly for road mileage. So I want to have a chance to assess that and see what that looks like. So maybe we don't add an additional person to Osborne, and maybe we add an additional person to Smelterville. That's not really a decision I want to jump into without a little bit more research into that, but some ideas that I'm thinking of. And you know, and depending on where we land there, then that would adjust where we look for our temp line. But I think for right now, we are functioning at a decent level for winter. We do have another temp that has committed to come on to us. He's returning from last year, but the weather has been so mild, he's still working for another company, so he will come on when we need him for snow. So then that's going to put our numbers pretty reasonable. So that's where my thought process is as far as our staffing level right now. I think it's a plan to move forward to where we kind of continue some of that idea that we invest in some temps and then we're not paying the benefits and things like that for the year round when we have some of those in between times where it's not really a project season or we don't have the volume of projects that we've had historically. Moving on, and then of course that would affect our the D expenses, the benefits. So moving past that, going down, some of the line items like our registration, education, things like that, we trimmed quite a bit. I'm not looking at fully putting those back up to the old levels, but just doing a readjustment depending on staffing levels, because how many people we have determines, you know, how much training we need, such as our CPR first aid. We pay a small fee for those cards, you know, and some different things like that. Flagger certification, the more people we certify, the more it costs us. So I'd like to have a chance to do a little bit of analysis with that. So some of those will change depending on our staffing levels. Obviously, we'll relook at the fuel because the diesel, we'd cut that significantly. My thoughts are to put some more into that. I don't know that we need to go to the full levels that we were at before because rarely have we reached those. And if we ever have reached those, it's usually due to a larger scale emergency that we're declaring for and we're getting some reimbursement. So I want to have a little more of a chance to assess that. I think we could increase that, but not to that full amount. And so that's going to look a little better for us. Obviously, the ones that we cut, that the fleet is still the same size, but we did have to trim those tires, chains, lubricants. I really want to rejuvenate those line items. So I'll be looking at that. Vehicle repairs, that's our small vehicle, our pickups, things like that. We're pretty good at that amount. I think I would like to see a little bit more go into the heavy. We've already been hit this year, and the fleet of our, what we own as far as our assets is just getting older. So unfortunately, the repairs are getting a little more expensive. So I want to look at that as well. Physicals and drug testing, we didn't move that line item, so I'm not anticipating any more in that one.
Would it be the maintenance line for heavy that would cover things like that hydraulic pump on that sander?
Yes.
At Osborne
Yes,
going
that's
out?
all classified as heavy. So, any of our larger trucks, anything to do with those, the graders, anything like that would be heavy. The light is pretty much going to be our pickups and those types of smaller things in the fleet. So you'll always see, a significantly larger line item for the heavy equipment maintenance. Professional services, we did eliminate that. That was what we had put in for before. We'd had $40,000 in there. That was for the building of the sand shed. We did get that completed this year. However, we do have another kit for another sand shed that was purchased. One was purchased with the Maverick money because we had to move our stockpiles off onto another lot. That was purchased out of the proceeds for that. The second sand lot was purchased with some surplus money that came to the road department, and that was to be allocated for a sand shed to be built at the Osborne shop. Our biggest need obviously was that sand shed to go up Government Gulch, and so that's what we built first. If we have the money after we see where it shakes out, I would like to see that line item in. That's a one-time line item. It's not something we put in every year. Once that's built, we're done. So that's something that I'm going to be looking at, hopefully putting back in when I present some new numbers to you guys. So we can get that done. We have the materials. The longer we have the materials, and we've had them for a while, the longer we have them, the more risk we are at having to waste some of those. So we really need to utilize those, get it off the books. My hopes are to be able to do that in the spring. So that's what that line item is for professional services. We had, and this is something I think is more of a discussion because I know the line items will come back next fiscal year, but the line items that affect other departments' budgets, the admin cost, the one that goes to building and grounds for this building, the weed spraying, we had some of those. I don't know what your thoughts are on, for an amended budget for this year, what you'd like to see those line items look like. I mean, obviously, that's something we'll have to build in for next year when we do the budget planning, but for this year when we're flipping, would you like to see some money go back into those lines, or did we shake out okay in the rest of the budgeting? Because these were the line items that affected other department's budget.
I think what we might want to do is maybe visit with Lori.
Okay.
See what she indicates.
Okay.
Just one quick question on the state funding, where we did see an increase in state funding this year, right? With the state highway user revenue.
Yes, we actually. Last year we got more than what we'd anticipated. Over $200,000, like $220,000 additional. So we did get more. This year we decided to be conservative on the general fund transfer. And so we'll be getting something. We just don't know how much. And we won't know until we get a little further in, because how that money goes is when JFAC gets involved, and then they start, they get the numbers and they say, okay, you need to decide, is it going to go here? Is it going to go there? How do we balance it on the state side? And so we really aren't going to know amounts until probably, I would say, May or June.
Okay. So one of the things I was thinking is with SRS funding back, they may pull that back more. Since
It is possible. They might say, okay, we took some of the hit, they took some of the hit. I mean, one of the big things is the SRS is massive for us, and it's massive for Idaho County, but for some other counties like Kootenai that are larger, they see a little bit of a shift, but it's nothing like as catastrophic as what it is for us when we lose it. And so it might not be as widespread of a windfall statewide for some of the larger counties. And so it might not factor into their decision making quite as much. So that's my hope is, after kind of thinking about it. Now, if the larger counties like Ada and, Kootenai and all of the, the big ones, if it greatly affected them as well, I think it would be more of a priority. And unfortunately, smaller counties like us, we're not as high on the priority list. So that's just one. Unfortunately, it's hard to make projections. We'll just have to keep our eyes on it. That is something that kind of in that realm, we've talked quite a bit about the bridge match for the Pine Creek Bridge that's in federal aid. We're looking at a match of approximately $360,000. Now, we just did an application for an LRIP to apply for $150,000 of match assistance, but that still leaves us with over $200,000 to come up with on our end. So that can't be SRS funds because it's federal funding, right? So we can, as long as it goes into our budget, which it would, if we deposited it into our budget, then that would be a road and bridge expense. So technically, because of how it comes to us, it's not that rule of matching federal money with federal money, because it is allocated to us and then we distribute it. Now, if we just got if we applied for some federal funding to match a federal funding, then it wouldn't work that way. So we're still within our realm to do that. So, and keep in mind, we are going to be getting an additional almost $800,000 from, back pay from last year. So that's going to be extra. So some of the things to think about. So maybe it comes from that back pay of the last year's SRS money, and then we would still have money left over. Maybe it comes from our holding back of the state money. So we do have some avenues that I think we're going to be on a good note to hit that match. So, but I just don't want those to get lost in the conversation. So then just some of the other things, I mean, obviously we can tweak a few of the lines here and there. We didn't really go down on anything as far as our winter maintenance, like our sanding material, our mag, de-icing stuff. We kept the same on that. Chip oil, that is a line item that we very reluctantly eliminated that we are going to put back in. I don't know if we'll be able to put it back in fully. Originally, when I had done the 20% cut, projections instead of the 40%, we talked about bringing that down 20% to $80,000. I still think we could get some decent chipping done with that. And if we have some reduced staff, that might be achievable. So that's going to be my target when I look at that. So definitely, and that's in that category of maintenance that we need to not be. Another line item that we didn't want to pull out was striping. We had reduced it in that first cut line. We had to pull it out. I definitely would like to bring it back in, maybe at the $32,500 mark. We did get the big highways done. We did, we're looking pretty good down on St. Joe River Road because we did that the other year. We got a safety grant, a federal safety grant for all those miles of Coeur d'Alene River Road and Pritchard Creek Road. And then we spent our money on that big endeavor to do the whole length of Silver Valley Road. However, if any of you have been up any of the gulches, and I know you have, we desperately need lines. Yeah. So even the 32.5 is not going to cover everything, but we can at least get a plan going to where if we can infuse that in every year. And then if we get some extra money, maybe we say, hey, let's throw an additional $50,000 at it, and look at it that way, but we need to get going on the striping up the gulches again. So
Yeah.
that's my plan for that. And then just some of the other line items that, some of them have been adjusted down that I think we're a little more comfortable with now at the levels, and if we need to look at bringing them up. So not everything's going to come back up to full level this year, but I really want to take a smart approach. We have been given this opportunity to kind of rethink things a little bit, and use some of the feedback that we've gotten. One of the biggest things that I would like to talk about is our loaders. I know we've had some discussion. We're about a month out from the loaders going back. So I didn't want to put anything on your guys' agenda about, we're going to, here's this quote, we're going to approve it, we're going to get going on it, because we knew that the SRS was coming back in and we needed to have this discussion first. I kind of would like to pause and have a little bit of a discussion about the loaders. I know it's been talked about a few different ways. What we do we look at renting for certain months of the year versus leasing? Leasing commits us to either 5 to 7 years to that lease payment. The lease payments aren't getting any lower with the economy. They're going up every year. Just in this flood event, we have really put some heavy use on the loaders. We've had to pull the snow equipment off, get them going, multiple loaders going in a district. We get these floods in the spring. I mean, not every year, but historically they happen in the spring, and we mobilize. And so it is a little more difficult for us to kind of source out a machine and get that and get the okay from the board. Hey, can we rent this? What are your guys' thoughts? And we're just kind of brainstorming right now. How do you guys feel about the lease versus not lease and some different options with that? Because we had 4 loaders, one for each district. 3 were going to go back. We were going to do 1, and it was going to be in that Murray district because they really can't function without that other loader. They have the wing on it. They have all of the winter implements, and with their level of equipment, they can't operate without it. We're similar down in the Marble Creek district. It's going to be detrimental for them to not have it. And then for the other districts, I'll give Osborne, for example, they have some routes that are specifically loader routes. When the machine is out on the loader route, you really need to have that loader to load the sand. And so it's, we're either having to move it constantly. It becomes problematic, particularly in the wintertime. Summertime is not as much, but it's really hard. We'd talked about options of, do we look at rentals for 4 months out of the year? Cost-wise, we're about the same as what we are for an annual lease payment. We talked about reaching out to some of the local companies that aren't rental agencies, but to see about short-term, rental of their pieces of equipment.
Maybe what we should do is on that, we should have another meeting and hold a meeting on our lease. And
just specifically on the lease.
On the lease.
Okay.
And then the load, and so that we, because I know we do that with graders and everything. So
right.
I think we should probably have a separate meeting for that one.
So at this point, what my biggest concern is, and I mean, we'll try to get that on the agenda as soon as next week.
Yeah.
But my biggest concern is, would you like to see it, so we're budgeted in our budget now without making any decisions to move forward with that one. Should I just move forward with our processes for that one until we decide on the other 3 and address those separately? Is that how you guys feel I should move forward on that? Because it would be operating within our existing budget. We were going to do it anyways. So if that happens, we just might have some of the loaders if we decide on the other 3 to move forward at different time frames. But if you guys are comfortable with that, that's kind of where I'm thinking we need to, because what I really don't want is for them to come on their date to pick it up and take that machine from Murray. So I think that's what
We'll just do.
That's
No.
what I'll do is we'll
Good
move forward on
Move forward
one
Yeah.
with
and
the
then-
discussion on 3
Yep.
to come. Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Let's
Yep.
do that.
Because that
Perfect.
one's already budgeted
That one's already
anyway.
budgeted. And
Yep.
Okay, great.
so then we can bring this back to the
Mhm.
table and figure out how we want to do with
Yeah.
whether
Lease
we want
versus rent.
leases.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Rent.
Yep, because I know that's kind of been the discussion a little bit, and I wanted to parse that out
Yeah.
with you guys. So beyond that, some of the other line items that we adjusted a little bit, we would just try to get back where they were.
And then we can probably come back in if you figure out what, if we are going to reopen the budget, we can just, do that as well. But we probably you want a couple months or so to kind of figure out? what you
I'm
guys-
thinking I would be comfortable with a couple of months.
Okay.
I think that would be ideal. The only thing that leaves us in a little bit of a lurch,
Mhm.
and I guess we could work it out if we decided, because when you open the budget, you really want to open it once. You don't want to just
Yeah.
keep opening it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to do, but I don't want us to rush in hastily
Okay.
before we've had a good discussion. My thoughts are, as far as the loaders go, and we'll talk more about like what we're doing with the
Mhm.
loaders, but we do have that line item where Lori recommended that it's like a contingency line for
Mhm.
375,000. So that might be an option for us to operate on without having to open the budget and then
Mhm.
open the budget
For
again. So, and then we could just JV it from one to another when the budget was
Yeah.
open. We would still be spending authorized budget
Mhm.
for the year. So just to get that in your head when, we
Okay,
go into the
that's right.
conversation,
Yeah.
because what I don't want to do is open it and then have to open it again
Yeah.
and then have
Yeah.
to open it again, because that seems a little bit
Right.
a little
Noticing the
bit
public and all
ridiculous.
that.
Yeah. So it's not cost effective, and it's not the best
Yeah.
use of anybody's time or resources. So
Okay.
just some of my thoughts. I know it's like a lot. I just wanted to throw it out there for discussion, let the public know
Yeah.
that this is happening. It's a
Yep.
good thing.
Yep.
And that we're going to do our very best to
Okay.
make the best decisions that we can.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think a few months would be really good, because right now, I mean, you all know communication's been difficult with the emergency that we're in. I haven't been, able to be in cell service or be in the office. And I really want to spend time on this. I don't want to just throw
I agree.
something
Yeah.
together
Appreciate
and
that.
Yeah. Thank
so,
you.
and then have it be more of a group decision,
Yeah.
because this is a little bit of a different position than we're in for the normal budget planning process. So not very often we get a redo on things.
Yeah.
So
And
Oh,
more
yeah.
money to put
and more
into
money
the
to put
budget.
into it. So
That's
some
the-
decisions will be made from there, and
Yeah.
then we can kind of chip it away. I don't think we're going to have it done in one meeting. I think what'll happen is we'll get closer. I'll show you some numbers. We can kind of discuss them.
Okay.
How you guys are feeling, how I'm feeling, and then we go back to the drawing board. I throw another sheet together. We just get it to where we are all feeling really comfortable about it. But for right now, as far as our operations, we're not, other than the loader thing, which we'll take care of, we'll get moving on that. As far as our staffing, we're comfortable with that. So we're in pretty good shape. We don't have to make any, crazy decisions with that. We'll keep our temps on like we had planned. We still have bodies in the seats doing the work, and we'll just kind of reassess when things calm down a little bit.
Okay. We could, if need be, we have an opening for Thursday, right? It's 48 hours, it'd be Thursday. If you wanted to do the loaders this week, we could talk about them Thursday. Or if it's can wait till next week.
I say let's wait till next week,
Okay.
just because if we are hit as hard as I think we're going to be hit, I don't want to put it on the agenda and then have to cancel it.
You're right.
So if we didn't have that, but I think I'd like to see this on the agenda for next week so we can discuss it. And in the meantime, I'll start moving forward with things with the
Yeah.
one in
Yes.
Murray, so
Yep.
we can secure that so it stays. And then hopefully we won't have too big of a window in
Yep.
between,
Yeah.
the other districts.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
All right.
And there might be an opportunity, if there's going to be a little bit of a lull with facilitating the paperwork, that they would allow us to rent for a few weeks, before we turn
Before they-
the machines in. It'll just have to be some conversations that need to be had. I don't have answers to that right now. So,
Okay.
One area I would like to hear from you on is we're talking about funds and potential other funds coming in is my understanding is Bonner County is preparing some kind of a disaster declaration for the state.
Yes.
How
So
would that impact your office?
So for us right now and we're preliminary in our damage assessment. We are working today to put a number on where we are to date. Not a number of what we're looking at for damages, but where we are to date. There's a threshold of $750,000 in order for it to move from a locally declared emergency to a state and then possibly a federally declared emergency. What we're able to do is go in with other counties who have also declared at a local level to meet that threshold. So Shoshone doesn't have to carry that burden of $750,000 if we were to go in with Bonner and with Kootenai and collectively we reach that threshold. That's what we did with the landslide on Moon Pass. We hadn't incurred enough costs, but because of the event that happened being widespread that caused landslides in other areas, we were able to go in collectively and meet that. So we are moving forward on that. We have been working with representatives from the Idaho Office of Emergency Management. I've been working with Dan Martinson on our end to make sure we have everything going. Right now, as we speak, we're working on costs. We have to identify the damage locations, the length. We have to estimate some quantities, some preliminary estimated costs. So there's a few phases of this, but we are working forward quickly towards that goal, and I am pretty confident we're going to get there.
Okay.
So that would be great because then that would reimburse our costs coming in and some of the other costs that we're looking at. And some of them, unfortunately, with what we're looking at logistically, we're still finding some issues on some roads that are a little further off the beaten path. So there's definitely going to be more to come with that. And I think Dan and I, once we get into a better position where we know that we are for sure declaring further than the local level, I imagine there'll be some meetings with you guys to update as well. But we've been really working it on our end to bring in as much money as we can.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
There's nothing further? We all
No,
good?
Thank you.
All right. Nothing
Yeah.
further. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank